Welcome back. So last week there was confirmation of the way that the rising fuel and food prices are affecting you, as inflation moved to 6.5%, making it so much harder for you to get through the week and to get through the month. A major part of this score is around fuel prices and oil prices. Neel Jivan is with the Treasury Sales and Structuring Commodities team at Investec. He joins us now. Neel, good afternoon to you. We've never seen the price of fuel this high, and that's just for most of us to get around, to get to work, wherever. But for some businesses, this must be catastrophic. What impact is it having on fuel-intensive businesses in our economy?
Yeah, afternoon everyone. Thanks for having me, Stephen. So yeah, as you allude to, a lot of our clients in the logistics, retail, and airline industries have been particularly feeling the brunt of increased fuel prices, which has obviously had an adverse impact on their margins and obviously their profitability. But beyond that, I think just the current state of affairs in global markets has just left a lot of our clients with a lot of uncertainty, some panic and some fear as to how long fuel prices may remain at these elevated levels, which has an impact when you're considering budgeting or particularly capital projects and committing to those sorts of decisions. That's had an adverse impact as far as planning is concerned as well, just beyond the obvious of eroding profits for a lot of our big fuel consumers.
Is it possible to know how long this is going to last, Neel? And I realize, I'm asking you how long is a piece of string. I'm asking you what President Vladimir Putin's strategy is in Ukraine. But, I mean, the world economy can't really survive much longer with oil getting at this high. Oil at this level, rather.
Yeah, I mean, you can read as many Bloomberg articles or as many forecasts as you want, but the truth is nobody knows where the oil price is going, up or down, or how long it's going to remain elevated. But what we do encourage a lot of our clients is to develop a prudent and a conservative approach when it comes to fuel price risk management, and to have that at the forefront of your mind, regardless of if the oil price goes up or down. Obviously, there are certain products that are more appropriate depending on where oil prices are, but the truth of the matter is nobody really knows. As you mentioned, you have to balance the supply squeeze globally from the recent sanctions being imposed on Russian crude imports, particularly by the West. But then that has to be balanced with what is the demand side of the equation, as far as demand that the US or the China may have in the coming months, given risk of a global recession, and the high interest rates and the high inflation rate environment we find ourselves in is fueling those fears of a recession, which will obviously be negative for oil prices as demand goes lower. So it's a balancing act between the two, but nobody really knows.
I mean, some people are going to go out and try and buy as much petrol as they can and store it on their property. I mean, that's a dangerous thing to do. Some companies do have the capability to do it. It's quite difficult to do, but is that really the wise thing to do at this stage?
I would advise against radical fuel consumption behavior or changes in behavior, as nobody really knows the full extent to which fuel prices may remain elevated indefinitely, or they could come all the way lower if we wake up one of these days, there's some resolution in Ukraine between Russia and the West. There's an unwinding of some sanctions, and if the world does head towards a recession, which has been fueled a lot of fears from the recent rate hikes we've seen by the US Fed in particular, which sort of causes a spiral effect elsewhere around the world, that could fuel fears of recession, and demand side destruction will potentially see crude prices a little bit lower thereafter. So I would not suggest people start hoarding fuel, but I would suggest that they get smarter around budgeting and expect the worst and expect prices elevated, and try and make smart decisions with that information.
I mean, what's happened in the past is that when, for some geopolitical reason, there's been high oil prices, we've seen OPEC and others increasing their production. This time seems to be quite different.
Yeah, so this time around, the void that's been been left in the market from a lack of Russian supply, even with your biggest oil producers in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, among the biggest oil producers trying to pump out as much oil as possible and looking for OPEC plus members like Libya to come online and also try and fill much of the gap. It is still not enough, and refineries are also starting to run dry. There isn't refining capacity, and as a consequence, OPEC plus and OPEC output is not enough necessarily to completely fill the void that's been left as a result of sanctions on Russian crude. So even with all of these, all of these members trying to do their best and trying to pump more oil into the market, we still find ourselves slightly short. And there's stories of Iran potentially coming back and negotiations between the states and trying to get some of their crude into the market. But I still maintain that that's not enough to leave behind a lot of the gap that's been left from what we've seen this year.
Neel Jivan, thank you. Treasury Sales and Structured Commodities at Investec. Do appreciate that time's an uncertain place at the moment when it comes to